Medieval Europe, an era often shrouded in myths of brave knights, deadly battles, and towering castles. But behind the romanticized tales of chivalry lies a far more complex world full of surprising truths and shocking realities. Stick around as we unveil 5 shocking facts about medieval Europe that will leave you stunned. When you think of medieval Europe, what comes to mind? Filthy streets, disease-ridden towns, and people who barely bathed, right? Well, prepare to have that image shattered. While it's true that many medieval towns faced serious sanitation issues, after all, this was an era before modern plumbing, there were also sophisticated efforts to maintain hygiene. In fact, public bathhouses were incredibly popular throughout medieval Europe, particularly in cities like Paris and London. These bathhouses weren't just for the wealthy either. They were open to anyone who could afford a small fee, from commoners to merchants. Regular bathing was encouraged, and people used scented oils and perfumes to freshen up. Some medieval homes even had primitive forms of toilets, known as garderobes, where waste would be disposed of through chutes leading to the outside. In addition to bathhouses, medieval towns also had regulations aimed at keeping the streets clean. Waste removal systems existed, and some cities employed scavengers to clean the streets. Although diseases like the Black Death had devastating effects, not all of medieval Europe was as filthy as we often imagine. In fact, some medieval cities were more hygienic than cities in the 19th century. The Vikings. We all know them as savage, bloodthirsty warriors who raided and pillaged their way across Europe, right? Not quite. While it's true that some Viking groups engaged in brutal raids during the early Middle Ages, the truth is far more nuanced. The Vikings were actually skilled traders, explorers, and settlers who established thriving communities across Europe and beyond. The Vikings had advanced seafaring skills that allowed them to navigate treacherous waters, leading to the discovery of new lands. They established trade networks from the British Isles to Constantinople, trading everything from furs and ivory to spices and silk. And let's not forget their contributions to European culture and politics. In places like Normandy, France, the Vikings settled down, integrated with local populations, and influenced regional politics. The Vikings were much more than just warriors. They were merchants, explorers, and even kings. So the next time you think of Vikings, remember, they weren't just raiders. They were also builders of kingdoms, traders, and cultural influencers whose legacy shaped Europe for centuries to come. When we imagine medieval medicine, the image of a bloodletting barber surgeon comes to mind. One who has no real medical knowledge and only knows how to amputate limbs and apply leeches. Well, brace yourself, because medieval medicine had its surprises. Despite the lack of modern tools and technology, medieval surgeons developed some surprisingly sophisticated techniques, particularly in the fields of wound care, amputations, and even brain surgery. That's right, there's evidence of successful trepanation, or the surgical removal of a portion of the skull to treat head injuries, dating back to this time. Medieval Europe also had medical schools. By the 12th century, universities like those in Salerno, Italy, and Montpellier, France, were offering courses in surgery, anatomy, and medicinal herbs. Surgeons in medieval times were able to set broken bones, perform amputations with minimal fatalities, and even carry out rudimentary anesthesia using herbal concoctions. Herbal medicine was an essential part of medieval surgery. Monasteries were often centers of medical knowledge, where monks cultivated medicinal gardens filled with plants used to treat a variety of ailments. So, while surgery in medieval Europe might not have been as advanced as what we know today, it was certainly more effective and less barbaric than the horror stories would have us believe. Many people think of the medieval church as an institution that stifled scientific learning and progress. But here's the truth. The medieval church was often a patron of scientific research and education. During the Middle Ages, monasteries and cathedrals served as centers of learning, where monks preserved and translated the ancient works of Greek, Roman, and Islamic scholars. These texts covered subjects like astronomy, medicine, and mathematics. In fact, medieval universities were often founded and supported by the church, and many of the scholars working there were clergy. One of the most influential medieval scholars was Thomas Aquinas, who sought to reconcile reason and faith. He and others contributed to a tradition of scholasticism, which encouraged the use of logic and observation to understand the natural world, centuries before the scientific revolution. So, contrary to popular belief, the medieval church didn't completely suppress scientific inquiry. In fact, it played a crucial role in preserving knowledge and fostering education, ensuring that future generations could build upon these foundations. We all know the tales of chivalrous knights, brave, honorable, and noble protectors of the realm, but the reality was often much darker. While many knights adhered to the code of chivalry, which emphasized honor, courage, and protection of the weak, not all knights lived up to this ideal. In fact, some knights were little more than mercenaries or thugs, working for whoever paid them the most. During times of peace, many knights found themselves unemployed, leading to a rise in knightly bands that resorted to robbery, looting, and terrorizing local populations. The so-called chivalrous knight was often more myth than reality. Moreover, knights were political pawns, serving the interests of the highest bidder. They fought not for honor, but for wealth, power, and land. This darker side of knighthood shows that the medieval knight wasn't always the noble hero depicted in legends. And there you have it. 5 shocking facts about medieval Europe that shatter the myths we've all come to believe. From surprisingly advanced hygiene and surgery to the darker side of knights and the scientific contributions of the church, the Middle Ages were far more complex than we could have imagined. If you enjoyed learning about the real medieval Europe, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Amazing World Facts, and leave a comment below with the fact that surprised you the most. See you next time.